Hey everybody, Living Martyr here. Uh, I'm gonna wing this one. This is my second video today. My first one was about the e-cig vaping crisis epidemic. But this one was going to be an hour-long video or so. I think which was very detailed and very intricate, had a lot of data, but I'm going to try to shorten this up as much as possible. This video is about the recent, the kids recently are saying that they are going to stop having children because of global warming. Okay? Please. We have a hysteria that's going on right now, and this happens periodically every decade or two, blah blah blah. But the worst thing about this is when I see kids being used as pawns, and I'm gonna say it because it's pathetic. Using kids for an agenda that to push the agenda along. In my opinion, is sickening. It's pathetic. These kids don't have any wisdom. They're just being brainwashed, told what to do, and they're being scared. They're being scared into that I won't have a future, or I won't have any. Mom and dad won't be around because there won't be a planet. I mean, you know what? Fuck bullshit. Fuck. That's the real Living Martyr coming out now. Okay, I just had myself a cocktail. How you doing? So let's start first with a video. No, you know what? Let's start here. Let's start with this. Let's go to where are we at? Browser capture. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about in the news. Teens are pledging not to have kids until the government takes climate change seriously. I mean, come on. Are you fucking kidding me? They're fucking teenagers. Some of them are not even teenagers. And somebody's telling them this shit. They're ramming it down their throats saying, hey, you know, you might not have a future. So... Hey, and we're going to get into why it's so ass backwards about them not having kids. The people that shouldn't be having kids are the ones that are in third world countries that are not educated enough. Much like these kids, but these kids should be more educated. But this is what I'm talking about. So this was in the news recently, just this week. And this leads to this. Look at this. This is a website called No Future, No Children. I mean, come on. So far, 2,717 teenagers or whatever have taken the pledge. They are not going to have nuptials because they want to save the planet. It's sickening, honestly. And anyone that wants to debate me on that, anyone that wants to think that to tell me you want to go, we'll talk about it because this is ridiculous. Keep the kids out of it. Keep the adults. Okay, and you'll say, well, the adults aren't doing anything, right? Congress is not doing anything about it. Yeah, there's a reason why Congress is not doing anything about it. You know why? Because it's a money grab. That's what this is. This entire global warming situation. Let me put it this way: is the climate changing? Yes. I'm not a climate denier. We've had 5 extinctions on this planet that were mainly caused by climate changes. Am I denying the climate's not changing? No. Do I know for sure it's caused by humans? I don't know for sure. I don't think anybody does. Not even these 97% scientists, right? And we're going to talk about that too. And here I am, I'm babbling, and I'm trying to make this a short video. And it looks like it's going to be a longer video, but let me try to get through this as quick as possible because I want to have dinner. Anyway, so you have this going on recently, and you know what? Who it bothered? Who did it bother? Out of all the people that said, "Hey, that seems like it's taking a little too far." Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. One more thing. A Swedish scientist suggested that climate crisis could lead people to consider eating human flesh, as opposed to, say so people died, let's eat the people that have died, as opposed to eating cows or animals to save the planet. Are you fucking kidding me? Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't know. Maybe he's on the new wave. Maybe this is what we should be doing at McDonald's, making burgers Soylent Green. Remember that? Well, for the kids out there, they don't know what that is, but there was a movie back in the day called Soylent Green where they made cookies out of people. Okay, and it's like reminiscent of what that's about. Insane. Now, that being said, because of this hysteria that I just explained over the past 10 minutes, this gentleman here, the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, okay? This guy isn't, like, he's in charge of the weather. He creates the weather, right? Says that the alarmist narrative on climate change has gone off the rails and criticized the news media for provoking unjustified anxiety. He himself has been saying, stop it. All right? He told us to Finland's financial newspaper, it is not going to be the end of the world. The world is just becoming more challenging. In parts of the globe, living conditions are becoming worse, but people have survived in harsh conditions. The atmosphere created by media has been provoking anxiety. Exactly. You're scaring kids. You're scaring people that have no. There's enough stress in the world. We don't need to be stressed out of whether or not we're going to be able to breathe the air tomorrow, right? The latest idea is that children are a negative thing. I'm worried for young mothers who are already under much pressure. This will only add to their burden. Absolutely. While climate skepticism has become less of an issue, now we are being challenged from the other side. Climate experts have been attacked by these people, and they claim that we should be much more radical. They are doomsters and extremists. Woo! Thank you, sir. Thank you for being the thought-provoking head of this extremist movement to tell them, hey, stop it. They make threats. Much more radical action is demanded by Extinction Rebellion movement. They demand zero emissions by 2025 and honest climate information from governments. So this is coming from, a guy that's in charge of the world's weather, right? He's not in charge of, but he's ahead of it. So anyway, let's get into some reasons behind the climate hysteria and why I think some of it is bogus and where I think some of this is coming from. So let's look at this. This is something that came out this week. An individual by the name of Tony Heller decided to take 50 years worth 50 years of different predictions of climate scientists and put them all in one website and show how they were all wrong. 50 years since like 1967, right? Look at this. 1967, before I was even born, dire famine forecasted by 1975 is already too late for the world to avoid a long period of famine, a Stanford University biologist said Thursday. Really? The New York Times, August 10th, 1969. Everyone will disappear in a cloud of blue steam by 1989. Whoa! That was when I was going to high school. Amazing. I didn't see any blue clouds except for bongs. 1970. Ice age by 2000. New York Times. Boston Globe, 1970. And it does need saving. The oceans will be as dead as Lake Erie in less than a decade. America will be subject to water rationing by 1974 and food rationing by 1980. Really? Okay. 1971, new ice age coming. In the next 50 years, the fine dust man constantly puts into the atmosphere by fossil fuel burning could screen out as much sunlight that the average temperature could drop by 6 degrees. 6 degrees? If sustained over several years, 5 to 10, he estimated such a temperature decrease could be sufficient to trigger an ice age. I thought we were warming. Say what? Anyway, I mean, you can look at this. If I'm gonna put this link down below if anyone wants to look. It's amazing. It's unbelievable, these stories of everyone that has not come through. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of why I believe the truth of the matter is. Do I care about the climate? Absolutely. Do I care about trying to recycle and do the things, planting a couple extra trees or whatever it might be? Yes, absolutely. But having this mass hysteria for having kids crying, I mean literally crying because they think they're not going to have a future, is insane. Now, and we want to look at the reasons why this is happening. Why are these people on that side causing this hysteria? Here's one of the reasons. Just one. But it's a big one. Follow the money. How many times have we seen this in the government and so many parts of other aspects of our life, right? Follow the money. So Stephen Moore, who was a distinguished visiting fellow for Project for Economic Growth at the Heritage Foundation. Let's look at the numbers. You know what? I was going to read all this, but let's look at the numbers. What's the big number down here? Here we go. So what's it going to cost? How big is the climate change industrial complex today? Surprisingly, no one seems to be tracking all the channels of funding. A few years ago, Forbes magazine went through the federal budget and estimated about $150 billion in spending on climate change and green energy subsidies during Obama's term. That didn't include the tax subsidies that provided a 30% tax increase or tax credit for wind and solar. So add to those numbers about $8 billion to $10 billion a year, and then add billions more in costs attributed to the 29 states with renewable energy. Mandates that require utilities to buy expensive green energy. Yeah. So it mandates that utilities buy the green energy. Isn't that interesting, right? Isn't that when the government becomes a little bit more socialistic? You could say when they're forcing you to do something, spread the wealth, whatever it might be, whatever you want to call it. Worldwide, the numbers are gargantuan. 5 years ago, a leftist group called the Climate Policy Initiative issued a study which found that global investment in climate change reached $359 billion that year. Then, to give you a sense of how money hungry these planet saviors are, the CPI moaned that this spending falls far short of what's needed. A number estimated $5 trillion, and that's not even. This article is from last year. You want to talk about the Green New Deal that AOC and all her posse is talking about now. We're talking about tens of trillions of dollars, $90 trillion. I read it at some point. Okay, it's how much money do you need? Hey, how about this? What if we just told everyone in the United States had to plant 5 trees? Would that help? That's actually not the problem. The CO2 levels are increasing, which are creating more life. But yet we're supposedly warming. Is that because there's too much trees, bushes, and plants? So let's look at another video. Let's look at AOC. Let's look at the View. I love the View. Come on, let's look at them and see what they have to say here. Hold on. Come on.
This new Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also known as AOC, like, I love that. She's already got the initials. She's that famous, and she's only been there 5 minutes. And she's one of the most vocal Democrats in the game right now. She's sounding the alarm about how seriously she says we need to take climate change. Watch.
If we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
She's getting a lot of blowback for saying that, but don't climate scientists say that we're on the verge of doomsday? I mean, shouldn't people be like worried and scared about this, really? You know, I mean, to me, it's like every time there's a weather report, Al Roker should say it's going to be 20 degrees in New York and a polar cap the size of Portugal has just dropped into the East River. Yeah. I want to hear the information. Another polar bear a group has become extinct. This animal is gone. I think the weathermen need it because the news department, they feel like it's not interesting enough. It's too boring for the public. We're more interested in, you know, the excitement of the Trump administration and the Kardashians. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that is the weathermen. I think that's where it belongs. They need to tell us every day how close we're getting to total disaster on this planet.
Yeah. Well, I know it's something that you and I've talked about a lot. I know it's something, Joy, that you're concerned about a lot. And I remember we had a conversation even last year, and you said if you were younger, it's something that you would be thinking about very seriously. Yeah. Would you bring a child into this world considering climate change? And I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds so drastic. But then if you look at the research, the birth rate in the U.S. has been falling for a decade, reached a new low in 2016. And studies have examined how large a role climate change plays in people's childbearing decisions.
Wait. Is she telling me that people are already deciding not to have children over the past 5-10 years because they don't want to bring kids into the world because of climate change? Is that what she's saying? Honestly, it's like freaking insane. Has that ever run across any of your minds, except for you whack job leftists, right? Oh, I can't. That's it. I can't. That video goes on for another 5, 6, 7 minutes. I can't. All right. But I don't want. Again, I'm trying to. We're already 17 minutes into this. I wanted to make it less than 15 minutes. But let me get. I have so many other videos. I have so many other, so much other data. I'll have to do another video on this at some point, and really get into the deep data on this, right? That nobody wants to really look into because the media doesn't care about that. The media doesn't care about looking into the actual real facts, the truth, the data, the matter, you know, of what's going on, the manipulation that's going on. But so let's look at AOC, okay, Alexandria Cortez, who's been real popular. She was a bartender a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden now she's the most popular politician in the country. Fascinating. Now you're going to hear her speak about why we shouldn't have children because of global warming, but then you're going to hear a gentleman that I believe really hits the head, really hits the nail on the head is what I meant, about why this hysteria is happening and what is the ultimate outcome that these people want to have. And besides Richard Lindzen, he really explains this well. So check this out.
There's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
So people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it. Right. Because you're not. Because you're not.
Yeah, because no one wants to be a politician because they're all full of shit. They're all shysters.
How about that?
You heard it here.
There's
But
bamboozlers.
did her office and did she not look
this
at
is
these
the guy
numbers?
I'm talking about.
To her, these numbers are meaningless.
This
First of all,
guy
it's to
knows
save the
his
planet.
shit.
She actually told a crowd, this was about 2 weeks ago, we only have 12 years left to save the planet, and you're worried about the cost? She could care less. Keep in mind, this $93 trillion estimate is on top of the $100 trillion estimate that the United Nations Paris Agreement, which Obama got us into and Donald Trump's pulling us out of, that was called the most expensive treaty in world history. The Green New Deal is only U.S. domestic policy, and it's almost equaling the cost of the UN Paris Agreement. But again, none of this matters. This is what their goal is, redistribution of wealth. There's a whole movement, Stephanie, and at these UN conferences, I've interviewed the architects of it, a guy named Professor Kevin Anderson from England. They openly talk about the degrowth movement. They want planned recessions in order to fight global warming. Why? Because a recession means the economy goes in the tank, and therefore your emissions go down because you don't have economic productivity. That's their stated goal. I've interviewed authors who have a book called Capitalism versus the Climate. Capitalism is incompatible with a living climate. This is the whole thrust of the New Deal. So a $93 trillion price tag is not going to deter AOC. In her mind, no cost is too great to save the planet.
And what did you make of Senator Dianne Feinstein's, I guess, confrontation or interaction with these teenagers and young kids that took issue with her not supporting the Green New Deal?
We are trying to ask you to vote yes on the Green New Deal.
Well, there are reasons why I can't, because there's no way to pay for it.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and
Planetary.
You know what's interesting about this group?
Kids, stop it.
I've been doing this for
Don't
30 years.
Don't listen to your teachers.
I know
Don't
what
listen
I'm
to
doing.
politicians.
You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that.
Well, interesting, a couple things. First of all, Feinstein, I think, held it together pretty well. A few instances of an older, sort of smug politician came through, but overall, to see some of those kids, as young as they were, as brainwashed as they were, worried, basically begging them,
yes.
The government must save us. And their inspiration is a 15-year-old girl from Sweden who's been around skipping school. And it's a whole movement of kids skipping school to demand government action. And now they're excited because the EU, based on these kids, are now committed hundreds of billions of dollars to fight climate. That was the goal of these kids, apparently. So Feinstein was basically facing an intergenerational issue. It was basically Feinstein battling AOC and using the kids as a proxy. Feinstein had to back down. She issued a sort of a quasi-apology the next day because she's worried about the young millennial progressives not supporting her. She's worried about an upstart taking her on, I guess, in the next election.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight the way that she was speaking to the kids is almost like she was sending a message to the Congresswoman
Yes.
Ocasio-Cortez saying that you should listen more. I've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
I know what I'm doing. I mean, honestly, like you could replace Ocasio-Cortez with those kids and it would have been the same exact conversation. And yeah, we saw some in the media embrace Dianne Feinstein saying that she was in the right. We also saw people point out that she was a little bit smug and probably could have treated these kids a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, to have them kind of like ambush her in the office. And really, when you bring in kids into a political conversation, really, it's just to shut down debate.
And some of these kids seemed well under 10 years old, and this was really appalling. But what's interesting is Senator Feinstein's being called a climate delayer is just as bad as a climate denier. Nancy Pelosi, by saying calling it the green dream and not making it a legislative priority, major activist, a guy named Eric Holtheis, is now calling Nancy Pelosi a climate denier. This gives you an indication of how far left AOC is moving the party, and these Democratic candidates are trying to appease AOC. And all AOC did was borrow from all the previous scares and use it. In other words,
all right, listen, I thought that was going on a little longer than I thought. I thought that was going to be a couple of minutes. It was going on too long. Anyway, so he gave a really, really good. He wrote a book on it. He gave a really good explanation. This is a political movement. It's a socialist movement. If you think about it, it's the spreading of the wealth. How can the government use its power based upon, hey, if it's the environment, if you don't want to care about the environment, then there's something wrong with you. And because of that, you need to spend billions and trillions of dollars to help support our survival over the next couple decades. It's hogwash. It's fucking bullshit. and people are falling for this stuff. It's just sickening to me. This has happened over and over. I just gave you the 50 years of the actual information. If you want to see that data down below, there'll be the link. But you know what? People don't want to look into the actual data. They don't want to look at the facts behind it, or the manipulation of people. Now I'm going to play for you this. Hopefully, I think it's like 2 or 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Richard Lindzen, who was he was a climate scientist for MIT, and he's going to tell you what he thinks the reason of this movement is. It's very important, and people no one talks about this, but the power associated of why this movement is happening, and I think that he gives a real good synopsis of that.
Why are so many people worried, indeed panic-stricken, about this issue? Here's where Group 3 comes in: the politicians, environmentalists, and media. Global warming alarmism provides them, more than any other issue, with the things they most want. For politicians, it's money and power. For environmentalists, it's money for their organizations and confirmation of their near religious devotion to the idea that man is a destructive force acting upon nature. And for the media, it's ideology, money, and headlines. Doomsday scenarios sell. Meanwhile, over the last decade, scientists outside of climate physics have jumped on the bandwagon, publishing papers blaming global warming for everything from acne to the Syrian civil war. And crony capitalists have eagerly grabbed for the subsidies that governments have so lavishly provided. Unfortunately, Group 3 is winning the argument because they have drowned out the serious debate that should be going on. But while politicians, environmentalists, and media types can waste a lot of money and scare a lot of people, they won't be able to bury the truth. The climate will have the final word on that. I'm Richard Lindzen, Emeritus Professor of Atmospheric Sciences at MIT.
Absolutely, I think he nails it. He nails the real reason behind all this. You know, here's the real deal. Okay, we're in a political environment right now. We have a year to another election, right? And everyone hates Trump. Oh yeah, oh, Trump is the Antichrist. Blah blah blah. We got to get him out of there. We have 20 different people on the Democrat side that are willing to do whatever it takes to get him out of there. So you have a political climate season, but unfortunately in America especially, maybe it's all over the world, but what revolves around elections, it's always the same thing usually, and anyone will tell you it's the economy, stupid, right? Well, can I get a thank you? It's the economy, stupid. So the problem with that is Trump. The economy with Trump right now is outstanding. I mean, he's generated millions out of unemployment. 80% of the people that have new jobs since he's been in office are minority jobs. So, he's quite the racist. So if it's not the economy, they have to shift everything to something else, and it's real good to feel, everyone loves the environment, obviously, right? I mean, who doesn't like to breathe? So it's an easy target, and you can use that as and Trump is not anti-environment. He's just saying it's bullshit. The Paris Accord is spending billions, if not trillions of dollars for something that Bjorn Lomborg, one of the best scientists in this field, will tell you that all that money is going to give you maybe a half a degree difference, right? Is it really worth that, as opposed to let's plant some trees in our backyard? I have 3 more videos, and I wanted to have some closing arguments. I don't have time for that, but I did want to give you a little bit of entertainment. I think this will really kind of sum up all this of how I kind of feel about it, and and I think you might be entertained by it. So this is Dan Pena. He's going to talk about what his thoughts of climate change are, and I'll be back after this.
Dan, you got the money. Okay.
I got a few, Bob. Yeah.
Okay. You support Trump? You do?
Yep.
Okay.
I was one of the first endorsers, public endorsers of President Trump.
What are you guys going to do when our ocean level rises?
Thank you for asking that question. I have the answer.
Don't let me finish.
I have the answer.
Let me finish.
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah. Okay.
For the first time on Earth, we're changing the gas.
Now you're full of shit. Sit down. I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer. Just shut up and sit down.
No way.
Sit down.
No. I got to finish my question.
I'm going to answer global warming.
All right, finish the question, then answer.
It's changing on Earth, and it's changing to CO2. What do you people with the money, what are you doing about this? Because
I'm going to tell you right now.
No, I've got children. I've got 21, 23-year-old children. And what's their future with you people with money? You talk about money all of the time.
Okay. Sit down, please. Sit down, please. In the front row. Excuse me. In the front row. Please sit down. Okay, you've asked your question. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna answer.
Excuse me, ma'am. Will you please sit down? Please.
Thank you.
That's okay. Please sit down. Let him answer.
Okay. In 2011, my wife and I were in Antarctica, renewing our vows. For most of you that don't know, Antarctica's on a mountaintop. Okay? And there is a $500 million facility, scientific facility there, and the scientists came to give us presentations about global warming. And they had cores of ice that they had drilled. They had drilled 4,000 or 5,000 cores, and they only brought 15 or 20. So they're going through the second or third core, and they said 275,000 years ago, this was the temperature, blah, 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 blah. And then 55,000 years ago, the world was 2 degrees warmer Celsius than it is today. This is 2011. And, stop. And he said, and I said, well, you mean the whole world? He says, yes. And the poles are only benchmarks. And I said, well, what about the things that the young woman alluded to? Okay? And he said, it's all cyclical. And although the gas may have exacerbated it, in the cosmos of time, it's not a fart in the wind. In the cosmos of time, of the 13.8 billion years that we've been on this miserable planet, it's not a fart in the wind. And as I told Joe Rogan on his show, and he said in his infinite wisdom, and Joe, if you hear this, I thank you for the opportunity of being on your show, he said, then in 25,000 years, it's most likely not going to be a problem. Now, my direct answer to your question, if that were really true, which you believe, and let's just for a moment say that it is true, that means that the best scenario vis-a-vis global warming is about 10 feet raise in water. That's the best scenario over the next 40, 50 years. That's the best scenario. The worst scenario is about 100 feet. But let's just take the 10 feet. If the water on the planet is going to rise up 10 feet, that means the southern part of the United States is gone. England is gone. Most of Europe is gone. And I can go, most of Central America is gone. Okay. If that's the case, let's just take Florida, for example, which is one of the fastest growing beachfront condominiums on the planet. In the prospectus, when you invest, there should be, in the footnotes, if global warming is for real, they won't put it that way, global warming happens and water rises 10 feet, this investment you made is fuck all.
Fuck all.
Not one single investment prospectus written since 2000, this century, has alluded to global warming. Not one motherfucker.
Whoa. Take it easy, Dan.
If it were really true, the banks wouldn't invest. The banks wouldn't finance. Not one motherfucking condominium. So the people that have the money, and I'm jealous of the Vice President, Gore, which Sally and I rode on a plane from South America with a few years ago. I am jealous he came up with a scam before I did. Because the financial institutions, the banks of this world know it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you couldn't get a goddamn loan in London. You know those 30, 40-year mortgages? The world will be over by then. Is Barclays Bank going to give you a motherfucking loan? With the greatest respect, ma'am, it's the greatest fraud that's been perpetrated on mankind this century.
Wow. Well, there you go. So, obviously that was my little funny skit at the end with Dan, a billionaire who thinks it's a fraud. I think he had a good point. You know, let's think about it. All those different parts of the country and the world that are in low water areas. If mass flooding were to occur, you know, would people be buying that, right? But there you go. So anyway, like I said, I wanted to have this to be a lot longer video. I'm kind of testing this out, to be honest with you. I don't have I'm trying to get this to the point where I have a baseline and I go through the entire list of the facts and truths that I know of in a way that makes sense to people. But unfortunately, I know that most people have a very low attention span, as well as do I. And if you don't shorten that, people won't watch it, people won't read it, you know, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I probably should even shorten this even more. Make it into, you know, like PragerU. It makes 5-minute videos because that's all people can stand, right? So maybe I can compress everything into that type of format. This is new to me. It's only my second video, but I have a lot more to come. And I hope you guys stick around. I'm going to have the links to the subject matter that I had talked about earlier below. And I would be very grateful if you hit the subscribe button. Until next time, ciao for now.